Good afternoon, this is Brian Rowe. I'm the McCormick Professor of Agricultural Marketing and Policy in the Department of Agricultural, Environmental, and Development Economics here at Ohio State University. Today I'd like to talk to you a bit about some recent research conducted by myself and my colleagues, Eric Nisbet and Greg Howard. Eric is at OSU School of Communications, Greg Howard, East Carolina University. With funding from the National Science Foundation and support from Ohio State University, we were able to survey over 1,000 Ohioans on their views about the relationship between agriculture and Lake Erie algae issues. We did this in March of this year, 2014, and we were able, after the incidents of Toledo, the first weekend in August of 2014, when over 500,000 residents of the Toledo area had to go without water due to algae issues, causing health threats to the public water in Toledo. We were able to go out about 5 weeks later, mid-September, and survey about 400 of those original individuals once more after Toledo. Now we asked a number of questions about the status of Lake Erie algae and its relationship to agriculture. And we noted some differences in their opinions and their attitudes, both between when they answered the survey in March prior to the Toledo event and then in September after the Toledo event. What we found is that they changed in terms of the way they attributed the cause of recent Lake Erie algae issues pre and post. Now, prior to the Toledo event, they put on par crop agriculture, urban sources of pollutants, and industrial sources of pollutants as equally likely to cause Lake Erie algae issues over the last few years. Post-Toledo, crop agriculture sources became the clear most likely cause of Lake Erie algae issues. And so we did see a change in that. The changes were mild. They changed about 4 to 5% in terms of their responses on a rating scale. So it's difficult to interpret that degree of change because we don't have long-term baseline data, but it was a statistically significant change. We also noted changes in their emotional state about Lake Erie algae, uptick in their fear and concern and worry about Lake Erie algae. Also, their perceptions of how Lake Erie algae might be affecting the risks they face in different parts of the state of Ohio might be facing. For example, the perceived risk to human health went up about 6 to 7% post-Toledo, as did fears about the Ohio economy and people in Ohio communities went up by about 3.5% and 4% post-Toledo. Now, we were also able to ask them about their preferences and their willingness to pay for different policies that could be implemented that could limit the damages from algae that occurs in Lake Erie. And so we gave them a bunch of different policy options and had them rank them, and did this several times. And from that we could tease out a willingness to pay that people had to reduce damages that go along with Lake Erie algae. And what we found is that there was a moderate willingness to pay to reduce algae damages for about a 10% decrease in things like fish kill, beach closures, and just the visual extent of algae in Lake Erie. We found that people were willing to pay between $35 and $45 per year per household to implement programs that might implement that change. Now, we did note that the way the program was implemented may have some differences in their willingness to implement those programs. We saw a little less support for programs that may be driven by fertilizer taxes and a little more support for programs that might be implemented through regulatory actions or voluntary programs. Although post-Toledo, those differences shrunk a little bit. So we're still analyzing this data. The data was only collected in September, only made available to us in October. And so we're at very early stages here. And we also have to note that this data is a convenient sample. It's only an online sample. So we have a difficult time projecting this out to the entire state of Ohio. But nonetheless, it gives us kind of the first view of how Toledo may have shaped Ohioans' view of Lake Erie and its relationship to agriculture, and how public support for policies might change with additional events that might occur, such as the Toledo event.